It is 8:13 on a Wednesday morning here on the Michigan Insider on Sports Talk 1050 WTKA, online at WTK.com. We're live here inside the Suburban Chevrolet Make the Choice studios. You know what that music means. It means it's time for Rays of Light, Mr. Weintraub.
That's right. Rays of Light are brought to you by The Sports Bar Westside. They're at the corner of Jackson and Zeeb, and their motto is eat sports, drink sports, watch sports, talk sports. They are The Sports Bar Westside. Take that, you dig?
I traveled each and every highway.
You know what's going to be great is when the podcast plays back, the music's not on the podcast.
Much more than this.
So they're going to get the acapella.
You're
going to get the acapella Marcus Ray.
My acapella coffee voice.
And just so you, hey, and that podcast goes up too, man. 8:14.
Too few to mention.
All right, so Mr. Ray, so we touched on some things, and I just want to take the opportunity to segue because you bring up some great points about everything not being recruiting, a lot of it being about do they fit what you do? Did you identify the talent? Then does that talent fit what you do? And then do you have the experience? This was the part that you didn't touch on yet with Michigan State. Do you have an experience group? Because you talk about Alabama, for instance. I went and looked in the break. 18 to 22 of their guys are juniors and seniors. 22 of their starters are juniors and seniors. You look at Michigan State right now, 16 of their 22 guys are fourth and fifth year guys. So you're talking about very experienced teams as well.
Yeah, and part of that experience comes with being able to play in the same system. Like when I say recruit a guy that fits your system, when you look at the last 7 years of Michigan football, it truly hasn't been any consistency. There's been a lot of turnover at coordinators and head coaches and guys moving and shuffling around. So now you get one coach with these type of players, then another coach has to come in and rebuild the program inside and out, win with the other guys, bring in your guys, develop them, and still compete for a championship. And then guys leave. You know, there are guys who leave the program when there are coaching changes. So you may not, be able to get to that top tier junior and senior class or senior-laden team. Now, to speak to your other point, I went back and watched Michigan State in 2011. And part of what's going on down there is they have the ability, because of the structure that's in place from a coaching standpoint and understanding how to recruit, they have fourth and fifth year guys on the field to go along with a good percentage of young players, freshmen and sophomore. So they get a good balance. Let's say like you split it down the middle, where you half your starters on the field are upperclassmen, the other half are lowerclassmen. When I watched them play in that 2011 Big Ten championship game, when they had Worthy on the field and Golson and Cunningham and Keyshawn Martin, well, at the same time, I saw Marcus Rush, Denikos Allen, I saw Bulla, I saw Isaiah Lewis, Darquez Denard. They're all on the field at the same time. And I said, wait a minute. D'Antonio is genius. And the reason that's another thing that makes him a good coach is that he can ship off pros and develop pros at the same time. But Michigan State, even though they're recruiting these two stars and those guys get a lot of playing experience, because, like I stated, they play early, and then they grow up with another batch playing early too, but they can still win because their system is intact. Now, look at the draft. Michigan State didn't world beat anybody in the draft last year. Darquez Denard was the only guy to get drafted off that defense last year. So they're developing talent, but they're still not developing pros. And that's when we talk about Alabama. They just they have pros on the bench. So when they send out a third year guy like Amari Cooper, when he enters the draft, they got two more waiting. See, that's how Michigan used to be. Pros on the bench. And so what D'Antonio's doing is taking average talent on paper, fitting their system, developing them, winning, and then winning in the Big Ten. But then those kids aren't going to the pros as far as, let's say, they're defensive guys and just tearing it up. Now, they put out some quarterbacks. But at the same time, Alabama's a different animal when I say you got real 4 or 5 stars and then the other 4 or 5 stars. Check the draft. Look at them kids physically and watch how they play. You can just see the difference in a real 4-star and a fake 4 or 5-star.
I got you, and good stuff, Marcus. And I think what was startling to me about Michigan State was I thought they were a veteran group last year. And they're a veteran group this year too,
and they will be next year.
To your point, you got all of these fourth and fifth year guys starting, but they're rotating in some of their young guys to really get a lot of experience. And by the time they are fourth and fifth year guys, now they're ready to start, and there's still a certain level of performance.
I'll give you an example. Jamal Lyles out of Southfield Lathrop. He's a third-year sophomore. He's getting a lot of playing time. He's not the starter. Number 82 is Josiah something, if I had his name in front of me. But number 82, he's a starter. But by the time Jamal's the starter next year, he'll be a fourth-year junior with a lot of experience. So Michigan State has utilized the red shirt game. See, when you have upperclassmen, you can save your babies. You can save your freshmen and develop them. And then a Shalik Calhoun is a third-year sophomore who tore down the Big Ten last year. Now he's a fourth-year junior tearing down the Big Ten. Just like me, I wasn't ready to play when I came in, but by the time I was a fourth-year safety junior in a national championship defense, I could have left early. I might have stayed too long, as far as I'm concerned, but utilizing the red shirt when you have upperclassmen helps build your program too. Where you look at Michigan, they have to play freshmen. They have to play a redshirt freshman or start them at key positions. And then it's just hard to win whenever you have that type of stuff, unless you got the best coaches in America. Not just a group of guys, but you better have the best guys who understand what they're facing. So when you look at D'Antonio and Narduzzi, man, those guys know what they're doing. They're hand-picking guys that fit their system. When you have a Denard and a Trey Wayans and a Drummond, these kids been around for a long time winning. And when you have guys that have been around with that type of experience, they teach the young boys how to win while, all the while they're not even on the field yet.
All right, so we painted a nice glossy picture. You just gave Marcus, you're friends with the Spartans now, Marcus. Now it's time to be an enemy with them.
Okay.
All right, so they are vulnerable, Marcus. There are some holes in what they do, and I was telling Ira, sitting down with you, because you have the great benefit, great football mind. You can break things down, but you have the benefit of having the eye in the sky, not the TV eye, but man, you can see things from different angles. And I told Ira, I said, man, it's like from going from black and white to color. And he made a better point. It's like from going from black and white to HD, when you can see all the different views, because you can see alignments, how teams react to alignments, how quickly they react to motion and shifts. You can see all of that. And watching some of the film that I did with you at Michigan State early in the season, this is pre-Big Ten,
mm-hmm.
You can really see some things that were exploited by some teams, and not just Oregon. Oregon did some things that Jacksonville State did, right?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And speaking on the type of film that I watch, it's really the official game tape. Like it is called the tight copy, where you watch it from the rear view and you can see the linemen. You focus on blocking schemes, different types of blitzes, seeing what type of breakdowns you had on the defensive line, offensive line, seeing what linebackers missed the wrong gaps. And then you can watch the wide copy just to get a feel for the back end and just to see all of the routes. So I actually watch film from both angles. And I noticed early that Michigan State, number one, they give up a lot of big plays, and you can formation them just because of the way they play their defense. So let me paint this picture real nice and basic. Michigan State plays 9-man football, so they'll take their two cornerbacks and they'll press them and play man-to-man coverage. Okay, so that's essentially you're taking the number one receivers out of the game, which means they're by themselves, no help under no circumstances. The rest of the guys play quarters coverage, which is just cover four and then two safeties. They sit heavy in their quarters, and if something takes them vertical, then that's what causes them to come out of their quarters and just play the deep ball. But let's say any number two receiver, like a slot on one side or a tight end on the other side, if he goes out, then the safeties take them. But see, when you run that defense, it puts a lot of stress on your linebackers, because now they have to be able to count. And then when guys move around, when guys start moving around, shifting and motioning, or let's say run like out and ups and switch routes, now the count gets messed up. So I don't think Michigan State is as intelligent as they once were on defense in the pass game. I think they even though Drummond is back, they miss Isaiah Lewis. Bunch sets obviously disrupts your ability to bump and run and play man-to-man. Now you got to think a little more, and then because it's not about how they line up, it's how they wind up, and that's what's going on with Michigan State. But in the run game, their two inside linebackers, they do not fit the run well. They're all out of their gaps. They overrun plays. They get downhill and get caught up in the traffic. That's why you're seeing teams like Indiana and Purdue hit home runs that they didn't hit last year. And I mean, Michigan State they're giving them up religiously. And then when you watch when the ball breaks, they got guys falling, taking poor angles. So that's not the same animal. The whole thing about exposing Michigan State is you have to be able to spread the field and make them, just like Oregon did, make them defend left, right, and middle. So when you have a stack set 2x2 or you have a bunch set, some type of trips in 3x1, now those safeties have to start adjusting to the coverage. And so you make them, so when you make them defend your pass formation, it opens up the run game. But you have to be able to at least sell the fact that you can go vertical. They've given up some deep balls. You throw a couple of bubble screens, and then you run the ball up the middle. But those linebackers get out of their gaps. They don't count the third receiver. They miscount the fourth receiver, and they get all confused. Next thing you know, he gives up one gap, 70, 80-yard touchdown run.
Yeah, good stuff. It was clear, Marcus, watching that game last year. I sat next to an NFL scout in the box at Michigan State, and it was amazingly enlightening, profound even, because he said at one point, he said, man, what they do is just so unsound. He said, man, you're going to have opportunities for big plays so often because they are banking on their pressure getting there before you can take advantage. Mm-hmm. And it was clear. He said at one point, they're trying to game Michigan State safeties. They're trying to game their safeties. And then it was very first series, because he kind of reflected on it, and he was the first one that pointed out. Because I remember talking about in the box, you had Devin Funchess running down the field on the post.
First play of the game.
But it was a big completion to Jeremy Gallen, play action completion to Jeremy Gallen down the sideline. They came, I think they were in cover 2. They came, collapsed on him. It was a good throw by Devin, but it was like a 40-yard game when it could have been 6. And he said, I heard you guys talking about that guy running down the middle of the field. He said, man, that's there all game. He said, man, their safeties are so run heavy and so unsound with their eyes that you can game their safeties. This is an exact quote. And man, Michigan just couldn't protect enough in order to do that. But it gets back to the point that you're talking about now. You can confuse their guys. Yeah. You can confuse them, not just linebackers, but safeties too.
You can trick them because they play with poor eye discipline. And see, last year Lewis brought a lot more enforcement when you talk about run heavy. Drummond just gets nosy. Lewis was looking to go hit and make some things happen. But Michigan State just has better players than the people that they're playing right now. And they play with this nasty chip on their shoulder where they bully everybody. They are the Big Ten bullies. Let's just be clear. And so when even a bully has a weak spot. He just don't want you to see it, or even if you know it, you can't get to it. Mm-hmm. But the key to beating Michigan State or exposing their defense, you have to be able to run the ball just a little bit. Like if you can get some success running the ball 4, 5, 6 yards here, or your quarterback can keep it. Now those safeties have to start to honor and help and get in those alleys, and then that's when they forget about, you know what, I got to read this guy for pass. That's why number 26 gave up that pass against Oregon. All he had to do was look at the slot receiver. If he blocks, then that's when you come in for the run. But that safety had his eyes in the backfield because he was so run conscious, he forgot to read his run key. And so the slot receiver faked like he was going to block the linebacker and went right down the field, and it was a touchdown. So Michigan State, you have to be able to run the ball against them first, or at least loosen them up. And then that's when you can trick their safeties. Because if you don't run it a little bit or have a quarterback who can kind of maneuver, then those safeties have no reason to get nosy.
Do you have to outrush Michigan State to beat them?
No, this isn't 20 years ago where, I remember Coach Carr giving us a stat that the winner of this game, led the, had the most rush yards at the end. That's not the reality no more, because Michigan State, let's face it, they are a passing team. Okay, like they run the ball still a little bit, just enough, but they want to get vertical and score a lot of points right now. So you don't have to outrush them. You have to win the turnover battle. You have to win the battle of field position, and also you've got to win the big play battle. So you've got to be able to throw a 40-yard pass over Hicks, over Trey Waynes, and flip the field and score some points.
All right, one more. We got one more segment with Marcus Ray. We got to take advantage of these rays of light. So stay tuned, folks. Here on the Michigan Insider on Sports Talk 1050 WTKA, the official voice of University of Michigan Sports.